Happy Tuesday, guys. This week's big release is Dynamic Text for Pro and Agency users. This is the first part of our roadmap plan from a few weeks ago to go live, and I think it's looking pretty good. So we'll be doing a full set of help docs for this soon, but in the meantime, here's an overview of how it works. So Dynamic Text is a way of changing the text on your page based on query strings in the URL. So let's say you had this page. You're running ads to the US, so you've got your headline here, attention all car owners in America. But really, you want to be more specific. You want to run ads to people in New York, you want to run ads to people in Boston and Philadelphia, and you want it tailored specifically to them, because the better targeted your copy is, the better your conversions are. Now, before, you would have had to set up different pages for every different area you wanted to target, but with Dynamic Text, you can do it all with just one page. So this is how it works. First, select the text you want to make dynamic. Then you'll find the dynamic text options in the More drop-down on the text bar. So we'll add a new parameter and call it place. And you can see this highlight here is now showing that this text is dynamic. So we'll publish the page and you can see how it works. So you can see at the moment it's saying America. If in the URL we add $place equals New York, the question mark lets the browser know that query strings have started, then it'll say attention all car owners in New York. We change it to Boston, it'll say attention all car owners in Boston. So you can have the same parameter affecting more than one bit of text on the page. So if we highlight attention and switch on the place parameter here, then when we add place equals Boston, you'll see it affects both areas. You can also have multiple parameters on the page. So if we set up another parameter here, let's call it type, we can add both to the URL. When you're adding more than one, put an ampersand between the terms so the browser knows it's multiple terms and not one big one, so the end of the URL will look like this. When you don't use any parameters in the query string, Convertri will use the default, which is whatever you've got in the editor. So using this, you can have incredibly targeted copy for a huge range of micro niches, all from the same Convertri page. A couple of things you'll need to watch when using it. If your dynamic text is longer than the default, then the text can go over the bounds of the text box, and that can lead to it overlapping other parts of the page. So make sure you use enough white space in your design that your page looks good even with the longest terms you're likely to use. Obviously this is even more true on mobile, so do check with long terms before you start driving traffic and adjust your page design if necessary. If we add a background to the text box, you'll also see that while the text will display however long it is, the allocated box won't grow to fit, so it's best to use transparent backgrounds on text elements when you're using dynamic text. So that's the big update for this week. We also have updates to the Webinar Geo API. You can now set it to register people for pre-recorded webinars, and past webinars will no longer show up in the list. And of course, we've got 3 more templates added to the Premium collection. We've also got a big update coming for Standard and Charter users. You'll soon have every API available in your account. We're aiming to release that next Tuesday, but it's possible it'll be the one after, so keep an eye out. That's all for this update. Have a great week, and we'll be back next Tuesday.